Good morning, everyone. My name, or afternoon, or evening. I won't say that. Welcome. It's the morning here in Sydney, but for wherever you're watching it, it could be any time. So we say hello to you. My name is Angela Skibberis. I am the kinesiologist, and it's my mission in the next year, or maybe this might turn into something that goes on for quite a few years, to connect with and talk with and discover as many kinesiologists in Australia and the globe as I possibly can, to dive into what it is that we do, dive into mystifying what we do, helping the general public understand what it is that we do, and also connect one another and serve one another in conversation, deep diving into all sorts of topics and specializations that we all love and are passionate about. So today we have a really special kinesiologist and actually a really dear friend of mine. Anne is an exceptional kinesiologist and practitioner. She will tell you more about her specialisations and what she's into, but she works at Kurrajong in New South Wales in the Blue Mountains. I worked with her alongside Kiko with Sydney Kinesiology for a period of time. And so that's how we got to know one another, and through a few other endeavours as well. But she's a really funny girl with a great sense of humour and just a really great worker, really great practice in Kurrajong. So thank you so much for coming on, Anne. Thank you for coming here today and sharing a bit about your journey with us.
Thank you, Angela. What you're creating here is amazing. I'm so grateful that you reached out to me, but this is an amazing resource for other kinesiologists to know other kinesiologists, and also the public to meet us and say, oh, look at all these different flavors, look at what they're doing. It's an amazing resource. So thank you.
My deep pleasure. Deep pleasure. So those of you who don't know, I have created a YouTube channel called At the Kinesiologist, or the Kinesiologist with a Z, just for a little bit of zing there. So you can go there. There's quite a few interviews there already. And hopefully in the next 12 months and after, we'll have many interviews with all sorts of kinesiologists. Some may not even be kinesiologists. Some may be people who work in similar fields, or all sorts of fields that support what we do. Because in a way, I'm sure you agree, Anne, that as a kinesiologist, we use muscle testing, but we do cross-pollinate and use lots of different types of, Bowen-flavoured moves, or massage moves, or lymphatic drainage moves, or, Chinese medicine acupressure moves. So we tend to have a few skills and tools up in our tool belt. And kinesiology is more, the muscle testing, muscle monitoring, feedback, which makes it distinct.
And other therapists do use it, like naturopaths, for example. They're not kinesiologists, but they may have done enough Touch for Health to use muscle monitoring to assist, with the prescription of the herbal remedies that they're going to be recommending to their clients. So it's
absolutely. And coming through from the original research of through chiropractic, really, and you may have a chiropractor that still uses a lot of muscle monitoring or muscle testing, applied kinesiology, which is a little bit more chiropractic in nature. And so that's the nutshell of what we're trying to do with this channel, with these interviews, to expose the world to many and varied kinesiologists and get to know who we are, what we do, how varied it can be, and how different it is. So I'm having a wonderful time chatting to all of you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and what are you passionate about? How did you get to kinesiology? How did you find yourself there?
Yeah, well, it's the first time I ever heard the word. I'll start with that, because that's probably when the first seed was actually planted. I had no idea what kinesiology was, never saw a kinesiologist, had never heard of it. And I was living with a dear friend at the time. He was a lovely flatmate, and he was very kind of into health conscious and spirituality types of things. And, he'd be sort of bursting onto the scene going, everyone should just eat wheatgrass. That's all we should eat. Like every week was something different. It was hilarious. Beautiful guy. And he came back one day and said, oh, kinesiology is the future. I've just seen a kinesiologist. Oh my gosh, it's the most amazing thing. And I think I was about maybe 18 or 19 at the time. And he was trying to tell me about his experience, which is hilarious now, because now I realize that as kinesiologists, we spend so much time trying to get this elevator pitch. What's a 5-minute description, or like a 20-second description that's not going to make people's eyes glaze over.
I don't know if you find yourself, someone says to you, what is it? And you just go,
yeah. And I just go, okay. I mean, I'm in my 8th year of clinic, so it's a lot easier now because I can kind of try and get to the punchline, but I might not be actually defining it really well according to what it would mean to them. But anyway, so he was just waxing lyrical about it and trying to describe, that, and I was 18 or 19 at the time, and I distinctly remember it was almost like a drawer opened in the filing cabinet of my mind and took the word kinesiology and just went. And I didn't use the information for a long time, probably 20 years. I never saw a kinesiologist. I never thought about it. Obviously, it was tucked away for later. And then what happened is I was booking a trip to India. I was doing the whole cliche, must go to India to find myself, tick. Yeah, I'd been through all the meditation and the, all of that stuff, which was very a necessary part of my awakening, and just, and of course I was going to India, and there was this really good special on, and my travel agent told me about this weekend workshop called Touch for Health that was being held at the Australian ACKM, Australian College of Kinesiology Mastery, which at the time was in Crow's Nest with Arthur Bablis. And I thought, oh, wow, that sounds really interesting. It was a free weekend workshop, and I was quite sure I was just going to pop in, do the workshop, have another life transformation, check out, go back to my full-time job. That's sort of how I'd been. I was sort of like a weekend guru, you know what I mean? You go and do all these retreats, and then you're back at your desk on Monday, because like life, right? Yeah. And so I was kind of, teetering between the two worlds, and and then I went to this workshop, and it was life-changing, just completely life-changing. I mean, to the point where I can remember what everyone was wearing there. You know what I mean? It just got so indelibly imprinted on my brain. And I found out there about all of these other modalities that I wanted to learn about, and names of people that I, would need to look up. And it was so inspiring. And of course, then I enrolled. I mean, even though I said I wasn't going to do it, I enrolled in their Cert 4 to be what did I do? No, I did the whole Touch for Health synthesis, and I said, well, that's enough. And then of course it wasn't. So then I did Cert 4, and then diploma, and then I went on to do neurolinguistic programming, all with the same school. So yeah, that was really life-changing, and that's what happened. And mind you, all this time I'd never ever gone to see a kinesiologist.
That's
ever.
Incredible. That's really incredible.
Well, you could say it's incredible. You could say it's loopy, but I just felt really strongly all the connection of the actual word kinesiology. It was like everything just went locked into place at that time. And it all made sense to me. And of course, as I started doing it, and we were practicing in pairs and in class, because we had, the bookwork is horrendous, isn't it? There's so many exercises that you need to do. So of course I experienced kinesiology with everybody else who was also doing that. And I think I only ever started to see a professional kinesiologist during the training, because it was part of the requirements, of course, to go and experience. And I did, and I loved it. But I just didn't feel it was necessary. It's really weird. It was like once everything locked into place, I didn't need to know. I didn't need to have all this verification anymore, right?
Mm.
Because I was coming from that kind of headspace where everything had to be verified, everything had to be proven, everything had to, and a lot of it was just excuses to delay things. You know what I mean? Because I
Yeah.
would do it in every aspect of my life. And it looks, to the outside world, it looks like due diligence or whatever, but actually it's just your own bullshit getting in the way of doing something that sparks you and questioning that. You know, you're enthusiastic about something or someone, and you're questioning that. Why are you questioning that? What could you possibly lose? Okay, you could lose a little bit of money and a little bit of time, but you would know that very early in the piece, you know. And I think what I was scared of is actually going into that joy and not turning
Mm.
back. So that's why the whole kinesiology journey, a lot of it is not about the kinesiology itself. It's about the personal development that actually had to take place for me to even go to that workshop, right?
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And of
absolutely.
course, once I realized how much power and knowledge that we actually store, it's kind of scary, because once you know, you can't unknow. And the more you keep uncovering these stones, the more you can't get away with your own bullshit. And it's like that too. And you can hide a little bit in the meditation, I'm losing myself space as well. You can still hide your bullshit a little bit there, because you know, you can go to this really peaceful place and then take absolutely no action, right? You know, you know what
Right.
I mean? Yeah, you feel really good and you feel like everything's resolved, but you haven't actually taken any action. And I was doing a lot of things at that time to avoid taking action. And kinesiology was the kind of slap in the face that was sort of like making me take action, even
Mm-hmm.
though part of me had a lot of resistance to that. And then, you know, once you know, you can't unknow. This is the thing. So once you keep uncovering all these truths and taking steps forward, you can't go back to that place of ignorance where you had this story that, you know, oh, you know, that probably won't work out, or that doesn't sound, you know, like it would, you know, it might not pay off, or you know what I mean? And you think to
Mm.
yourself, well, like, yeah, you know, it was about that for me. You like initially.
Yeah. Initially, I mean, that's a really unique story, because generally you hear someone, they've, been to a kinesiologist, had an amazing experience, and then for them it was like, oh wow, I want to continue on. So that's,
Yeah.
in some ways,
Yeah.
that must have took a lot of, like, just trust in your own
Trust.
intuition,
Yeah, it was all about
that,
trust.
yeah, that, oh my goodness,
Mm,
like,
mm,
just understanding this practice, seeing the possibility, it all just made sense.
mm,
And following that anyway is incredible,
yeah. Yeah,
really
because I've
incredible.
been through a long period of denying that, a long period of
Mm.
denouncing my intuition and trust, right? And I
Mm.
thought that I was fine with that, but obviously, you know, it needed to happen. I needed to build a bridge to trust myself, really. And there were moments in that journey where I didn't trust myself, honestly. You know, I thought, oh, you know, I'm not good at this, or this is too hard and stuff like that. So I think a lot of the kinesiology pathway was about that for me, right? It
Mm.
wasn't, you know, yeah, yeah, I had to get over myself.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
kinesiology is something that, it's something that I spoke with Aaron Farrell from Horizon
Mm.
Kinesiology yesterday. If you're looking for that
Aaron.
interview, it's there. We talked about the fact that when you come to a session, there's, we don't have a set list.
Mm,
We have lists and resources to rely on, but really every person is unique. Every issue is unique. The way they're putting together their, whatever's going on for them is quite unique. So there's a huge amount of trust every single time you walk into the clinic that the process is going to meet someone where they need it to be, or where they need to be met.
mm,
And
mm,
so, do you feel like that for you, like just being inside the context, because we use the word context a lot in kinesiology, being inside the context of what kinesiology is, was the thing that helped you to shift out of that or shift through that? Like, what do you think the biggest thing that kinesiology as a person has done for you?
It's stopped making me be afraid of my own success, because it is your own success that actually does frighten you more than your failure. But you don't want a wants in disguise, and vice versa. So you can always be right? You're always right. If you do nothing, you're right. You know what I mean? So to let go of all that and say, what is it exactly I want to be right about? I want to be right about failure. I want to be right about the fact that I didn't try anything, that I never did anything because it was too hard or whatever. There's, like, I come from, I guess the school of life is actually, I'm not going to tell you everything's easy. Everything is too hard. Let's just start from that paradigm. Everything's too hard and you have no time for anything. And this is an absolute truth. Okay. It is an absolute truth. Everyone's juggling things. There are time constraints. There is a thing called time, and your body will eventually need to sleep. And so, prioritizing and juggling, you can't even get there. Everything is really too hard, and you can live in that and just have a very prescribed life where you go to one place and come back every day, and you might be happy with that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you're happy with that, don't change anything. But if you want to change, then you have to change, right? And no one can actually do that for you. And no amount of creams or mantras or whatever you want to put on top of what you're doing is going to make up for the fact that you have to make a decision somewhere internally with your time. And it starts with your thoughts, actually. If you spend so much time talking yourself out of things, that's time as well, right? So you also got to be aware of the fact that you have wasted your own time talking yourself out of things a lot of the time, right? There's time and there's time. And I think, so if you start from the paradigm that, everything is really hard, it's hard to fit in, the dance class or the exercise or doing certain things, and you still get to decide which things you're going to keep and which things you're not going to keep, because you literally can't do everything, but yet you can do everything without being aware of it. You know what I mean? And I think in a way you get put on the spot the more interested you are in life, the more ambition you have, personal ambition you have, the things that you want to do. I'm a singer-songwriter as well, and to fit all that in around doing the things we do to make money and doing the things we do for love, and sometimes they are the same thing and sometimes they're not, and there's different avenues. There's actually no reason to do anything. Okay, there's no reason to go and write. What reason do I have to write songs? No one's holding a gun to my head. I have no reason to do it. You don't have to do anything, actually. So I come from that paradigm and work myself upwards from there. And that's kind of how I deal with people as well, because I totally I understand how powerful we are, and I don't know if I'm meandering off. I probably am, but you can rein me in. I've gone off topic, but just that whole thing of constantly, people constantly telling you that you can do everything, that you can be everything. In a lot of ways, rebelling against that is actually really healthy in a lot of ways, because we get a lot of conflicting messages. We're always being told to slow down, but at the same time to do everything. You can be everything. You can do everything, but then, slow down and take time. It's full of commands. It's full of commands. And I think part of when you put your foot down and just sort of say, you know what, I'm not doing anything. I'm not listening to anything. I think it's a necessary and healthy process if you go through that and you give up on yourself a little bit and you say, I don't believe you. I'm just going to stop. And I think it's like, if you really want to have faith in something, you need to hold it up to the light, and you need to um criticize it as well. You need to what's the word I'm looking for?
Almost like pulling something apart, having a deeper look at things.
You do need to test, and that's a test. Testing yourself is the real meaning of that. It's not what society thinks is testing yourself. Can I walk 10, 15,000 steps today instead of 10,000? Yes, that is a test, but in terms of, do you believe yourself? Do you believe what you are saying and what you are thinking? And unless you test that, you're never going to know if you're just being led by the nose, or led by societal ideas, or led by a reaction to something that's triggering you, that you've gone down this path, said, I'm going to do this because I'm going to show them all. I'm not saying those things aren't helpful motivations that we can use to get ourselves started, but they can't make a life. You will eventually, if those things are the only things driving you, you will eventually run out of steam. So, it's good to test yourself, and even to turn on your own beliefs and say, why do I believe that? I actually don't believe that anymore. And it's okay for you to cross-examine yourself in that way, not to get lost in analysis paralysis, where you just, you talk yourself into and out of everything. So you literally can't move and you've got no options. I mean, that's very convenient too, because that also can be a way of like slowing yourself down from your own growth. But, I mean, in a lot of ways, I think I was afraid of myself. I was afraid of what would happen if I could have what I wanted, and lots of things. And I didn't believe it. And so I was always right. Oh, of course you can't have that. Or of course you can't do that. Oh, it's not possible. But I was afraid of what would happen if it was possible. And then when I did start to experience a lot of these things that were a result of me literally changing some of my beliefs. So yeah, I mean, I guess the message is, don't trust yourself all the time. Sometimes you have to test that trust that you have in yourself. And then unless you do that, you're not going to know. You're not going to have that relationship where I know now that if I get a signal to do something or learn about something, it's not because I'm trying to avoid something else.
Yeah. So like a good way to nutshell that for people is like, the whole process of kinesiology is, through the muscle testing, is to discover whether the conscious and subconscious brains are in agreement with something.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't know that our subconscious drivers may be, we might think to ourselves, oh, I really like to do certain things, to work really hard and not give myself any time during the day. It's just, no, I'm constantly have to work. I have to be whatever. But then we realize, wow, through muscle testing, that possibly the reason why we fill every gap of our day is because we just can't possibly sit with ourselves and allow whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's just looking at, sometimes because it is subconscious, you don't know what you don't know. So we're just going through life and then wondering why life keeps showing up the same way. And it's basically those subconscious drivers in play. So the beauty of kinesiology is that come in and, say, okay, I think something or I believe something, and then we use the muscle testing to verify whether the conscious and subconscious agree about that statement. And sometimes they do agree, okay, and sometimes they don't. And so, I love myself in the subconscious. The muscle response will indicate that there's something not quite congruent about that. Oh, wow. So when they're not congruent, then often on a very subconscious level, then we start to experience life like I'm unloved or I'm unlovable, whatever.
Because you haven't disrupted the pattern. Right.
That's right. So I guess what you're trying to say is, like, really, it's just kinesiology has helped you to to sift through all of the known and unknown belief systems that are creating the life that you're living, and question them, and to sit back and question, well, is that something that I really like to do? Is that the direction I really want to go? Where it could actually be connected to very old drivers that were about safety or security or protection or
absolutely,
all of those kinds of things. So it's diving into questioning even some of the things that we think are positive, to particularly when you look at the readout of our life, considering the whole hypothesis that the readout of our life is basically what's going on in the subconscious brain, driving everything. It's like, okay, so what's in my life and what I consciously would like to experience are two different things, and something's going on in the subconscious brain that's just supporting that reality to be the case. And you know, if you think that, you know, oh, I'm rejected, I'm always abandoned, I'm always alone, and then somehow we just find ourselves consistently in situations where, like you said, you'll be right. It's like, see, I knew I'd be alone again. Oh, see, I knew this would happen again to me. Or see, I knew I'd always end up with nothing or whatever. And so as kinesiologists, often we come to sit with people and help them just step back and take a look at the framework of how we're putting life together, and just maybe poke and prod. I wonder about that, or question something that we're thinking. And then it's almost like it unravels this whole, it's like a cat with a ball of wool, like, you know, this whole convoluted,
overcome, like you have to overcome yourself. Overcome yourself. That's what it is. And all we are, and this is what I tell my clients, we're just conduits. We are, kinesiology is just the pipeline to connect you with your own solutions that have always been there, your own problems that have always been there. But disruption is necessary for change. And if you're too scared of the disruption, you will not change, because as we know, the prime directive of the subconscious mind, and this is one of the presuppositions of neurolinguistic programming, is literally to move away from pain more than it is to move towards pleasure. So if there's this much space between you and, when I say pleasure, I mean, you know, getting to the other side of what it is you really want. There's this much space, and in that little tiny space, there's the unknown, right? There's the water element, right? The Chinese element of water, which is death, which is the unknown, which is fear. And there's this massive space for you to step backwards and not change. You'll go back. Subconsciously, you will, because if it's your subconscious that's driving your life, you are not in control. You're not in control. And you must, whatever you do has to be in the conscious mind for it to actually be done in real time. So, I mean, people in a lot of ways can get stuck in their subconscious mind because it's so much safer there. Because like I tell people, your subconscious mind is not interested in your growth. It does not care. It wants you in the corner eating jam, and will keep you there because it's safe and it's happy. Okay. And that's its only job. That's its job, right? Its job is not self-development. In order for you to overcome yourself, you have to get in the front seat in the conscious mind and relegate the subconscious mind to the back seat with a jar of jam sitting in the corner, living a very safe life, because that's what it needs. And that's what it's really good at. And it kicks in, you know, when the fight or flight situation comes in. We still need it, but we don't need it driving. You don't need to be subconsciously driven in life. And I think, like, people really got into the subconscious stuff at some point. I think there was this whole paradigm about your subconscious. And yeah, it's really important. It can literally take over your entire life.
Which can
consciousness is what you need.
That's right. And which can flip it in some ways to, I love what Bruce Lipton talks about with the subconscious and conscious minds, where if we can get agreeance with the subconscious and conscious minds on something that is important to us, like a value like being financially free or having loving, healthy relationships, if we can get them to agree on what that looks like, it's power. and or powerful, and power in both directions. It's powerful to keep leading us back down that same path that we always go in, and we just think, how did I end up back here again? Because the subconscious drivers of just like patterns, just like
and
programs.
it's a spiral, right? And we talk about
it.
this, you know, people think progress is so linear that once you're here, you're never going to be there. You'll be there. And of course, what we learn is what we've been told about progress in conventional, you know, teachings is very damaging, because you can literally think that you're not doing anything, but you have. But everything's a spiral, and it will come around again until you resolve, you know, why. I'll use an example from my own life. You know, why was I constantly getting into relationships with the same types of people and being at the same junctures? And each time I would think, oh, you know, I'm free of this now, but I never really got to the heart of it. And again, getting back to my point, and this is really important, is that you have to disrupt in order to create change. So if you can't disrupt, then you can't connect. And it's convenient to stay disconnected from the self when you're dealing with the fact that you are going to, when you change, you're going to change. You can't change without changing. And I think the wish list of a lot of us, you know, in the past was, can I just change without changing?
Yes.
You know, can I have the really good feel-good vibes from a great retreat where I meditated with a guru and I felt joy? Can I just have that bit, but not all the other shifts that are going to cause my life to be disrupted? You know, do you know, and this is what I tell people, because like kinesiology, through accessing the person's own system and their own, and I tell them all the answers are from you. I'm not suggesting, we're not putting suggestions into your mind, and we're not just sitting there going, you know, you know what I mean? Not that that isn't helpful, but I think we've all been through that, and you know, kinesiology is just going to complement whatever else it is that you've ever done or are doing. I mean, it can't take away, right? It can only add. But in you know, you might think that the big scary problem, or the big glaring issue, or whatever it is that you're trying to get over or solve, that's at the very top. There's a pile of pickup sticks, right? And I use this imagery to describe to people what it is I'm actually doing. What are we doing? Because I'm talking a lot during this session, because I use a lot of neuro-linguistic programming. So I'm not the one who doesn't talk, but I'm provoking, and you know, they're also provoking. I mean, you must want to provoke something, otherwise you wouldn't go to see anyone, right? Unless you're going for a massage and you just want something very tactical just to help you with, or just to have a relaxation. I would argue kinesiology is not relaxing in that way, but it bigger picture and long term, yeah, you're going to get real relaxation. That it doesn't come from your brain attacking you all the time. All right, if you can just work with that. But if you work with the fact that everything is a relationship, everything that we experience in life is a relationship, everything. So I say to people, can you accept that idea? Okay, so we're dealing with this relationship that you're now having with blah, 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 blah. If it's an object, or, you know, whatever, an intangible thing or a concept, that's a relationship. Everything's a relationship. So we're full of all these relationships, and you could walk in and say, right, here's the problem. I've got this happening. It's this big, terrible thing. This is the problem. This is what I need to work on. And you go, okay, well, thanks for telling me all of that. Your body is going to decide what the priority is, not me and not you, right? So here's the big pile of pickup sticks. And at the very top of the pile is that big, awful thing, or, you know, the very big thing that they're trying to work on. Or it may not be a problem, it may just be a challenge, right? It's at the very, 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 very top. But in order to bring about real change, you don't take off the top stick of the pile. You go to the bottom and you pull out the one stick that's supporting the entire structure, right? That everything else has been resting on, all the beliefs and, you know, this equals that equals that. You want to pull that out to cause a quantum collapse. right? And you don't need to be a scientist or whatever, or you don't even need to use the word quantum, right? It's just, forget the word quantum if that's off-putting. But I mean, that's really what needs to happen for any kind of change. And if someone's not ready to change, then what will actually come up in the session is not that very bottom stick. It might be, another stick. But if people can't accept, some people may come in and they may not be ready to actually do that full change. They may have to do, it's all the surrounding issues that are keeping the challenge in place, right? And however people unpack is entirely up to them at whatever rate that they want to do that. But my role as a kinesiologist is not to try and dilute what's coming up or what the body indicates we need to go to, or say, oh, well, I know you said that you don't want to go there, or you don't think that's the problem. But, my role is to say, well, then why is your biofeedback, why is your muscle constantly unlocking when we talk about that? Because if we don't honor that, then literally we are overriding this person's body wisdom. Yeah. And that's why I try to explain to people, you're actually totally in charge. You're totally in charge of the session. This is the most empowering thing you've ever done. So whatever comes up is not because I've got a prescribed way of how to deal with X, Y, and Z. Once we know that the muscle is structurally, emotionally, and biochemically sound, whatever comes up is what we are dealing with. And that's it. And if you don't trust that, then you don't trust yourself. Work with someone else. Or get yourself to a stage where, because if you don't trust yourself, kinesiology is very, 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 very confronting. Would you agree? You probably wouldn't want to do it. You probably wouldn't like the therapist after,
it could be, it can be, it can be.
Absolutely. So if you really want to honor the work, you can't.
Yeah.
Sometimes it even brings up stuff for the kinesiologist, Ange. Have you been through this? Yeah, absolutely. And it can be
all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you can
Definitely.
go, Jesus,
Exactly. And like, it's probably,
we're growing together.
There's not a huge amount of people that have let's say aggressive or violent responses to what comes up. Most people, they'll come in, particularly if it's their first session, and we muscle test something, and it to them has no connection to whatever they've come in with, and they may or may not burst into tears or become quite emotional, and I didn't expect to be like this, or I'm apologetic, I'm so sorry, I didn't expect to be so emotional. And okay, we know we've hit a raw nerve, so to speak, connecting to all of this, so we kind of know we're on track. But every now and then I have had clients who we've tested something. I remember years ago a lady had something come up, and I said, oh, does this make any sense to you about this particular thing that happened in her childhood? And she immediately became enraged and said, I don't see how that particular issue has anything to do with my spleen. And she had a sick spleen at the time, or whatever it was. And I said, okay. And we were literally about 10 minutes from the end of the session, and she had a very, very huge reaction. And I said, look, I can see how you might. I'm tired of talking about that, it's got no. How could that possibly have any connection to what's happening to me right now? And it was connecting into a concept around the sweetness in life. I think it was pancreas, actually, and the sweetness in life in relationship to her childhood. Anyway, I said, look, we have 5-10 minutes left of the session. You're paying for the session. Please just humor me. Let's just complete the session. Let's just go, like, finish the process. Let's not leave you hanging. Let's just complete this. And I was completely confronted because she was very angry.
Yeah.
Very angry.
Because you disrupt her process, disrupted her. It disrupted her.
And obviously it's in those situations with, you've sort of touched the barbed wire events where, oh yes, there's this protective mechanism going on here, and what we might like to call ACT, where someone's like stay away from that. That's part of my protective process here. Stay away from that particular issue, because that's got to keep in place for me to be safe. So we just completed the simplistic, whatever it was that we did at the end. I thought I would never see her again. I thought, wow, that's a pretty intense reaction. It does impact us. As much as I'd spent many years in palliative care wards and had lots of different and varying responses, so I was quite used to, all sorts of emotional. It was okay, but I thought, wow, I will never see that woman again. That was amazing. And 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from that lady, and she said, "Oh, Angela, it's such and such." And I said, "I must admit, I didn't think I'd hear from you again." She said, "I have to apologize for my behavior in that session. What I was really dealing with is that morning she had been arranging her funeral with her family. Now, I knew that she was very unwell, and she did pass away, this lady. But her reaction really had nothing to do with what I asked her, but she was dealing with a lot of fear. And that question, we spoke about her childhood. She said, there was no sweetness in my life. There was none. And it really did hit. It was like hitting the nail right on the nerve. And she said, and if I'm honest, I feel the best I've felt in years the last 2 weeks. Can I please come back? And I said, you can come back on one condition, that you don't yell at me again. She goes, deal. So she did come back, and we, and some people might think, oh well, the work failed her because she passed. Well, no. She was terminally ill, and our journey was to help her unpack all of the unsaid, unhealed, unprocessed, and unfinished business before she passed. And so we did a series of sessions that were profound. She, in my understanding and opinion, I think she, as much as it's never necessarily wonderful to go through the process of being terminally ill, but I think the process helped her to go through it much easier, with a lot more peace. She was at peace with herself and the process. And in the end, I was one of the people that were coming in. I also play harp in palliative care, as you know, and I played for her before her passing. And she was so brave. And by that time, we had such a wonderful relationship that I could ask her anything, and I did, and all sorts of questions about what she was dealing with and facing and how she felt. And she was extraordinary, and she faced herself. And I think that's part of, we're not here to put anyone else off coming and thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have this here. That's very rare. That's pretty rare, that kind of extreme experience. But yeah, there is a sense of walking in the room and lying down and seeing yourself for the first time, maybe, or seeing the reality of what's really holding together what you're up to in life. And you think, and often we look back and see that we join the dots backwards to where we press the record button of our subconscious mind about, well, I must keep doing this or whatever, or
the cellular memory just takes a photo.
And we join it all back, and next thing, like you say, the house of cards. So you come back to that origin, that source of the moment, that belief system, that trauma that was set in place. And next thing, when you pull that, the house of cards comes down, like when people used to do that.
Your
like
delusions.
All
your delusions, anything that held you back, and you get to lie down with your lions and your lambs, right? Because you have to forgive yourself for not knowing.
Right? And most of us, I often say to people, they think, oh, why would I be doing that? And oh gosh, I've set this paradigm up, or this protective mechanism up. And one thing I've learned over the years is that really and truly, it's all very benevolent. The whole system is this benevolent, protective. It's just like, I just want to keep you safe. The whole system, the whole network of things that we learn and do, it's all just protection.
Yeah,
and
it is.
and
Yeah.
and not necessarily like the body's got it out for you or the system's wanting to harm. No, it's actually the reverse. The system creates all of those processes and patterns and just to keep us safe. And I think
And you
once
have
I
to be
saw
ready.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. And it can take a little while for people. It can even be some sessions. I have had not many, but some sessions, because we do test for permissions to make sure that we have permission to go in and pull something, some type of pattern apart.
And they need to be ready to give up, right?
Yeah,
If the message
to
is
let it
give up,
go.
right? And it's hard to get your head around at first. It really is about giving up, okay? You either give up this version of yourself that you keep fighting against. You have to be ready actually to give up, right? And this is the weird thing, because in a lot of ways we've been kind of, hammered to like, that's a dirty word. You never give up, right? But we're asking, they're asking the question, it might be time to give up this belief or this fight, because it's endless. It'll keep going for as long as you want to be right, or you know what I mean? That whole thing. And also another aspect of that subconscious mind and what we call sabotage, right? Which most people understand that word, sabotage, but in kinesiology, it's also the secondary gain, and in many psychological circles, that's what it's called. And it's such an ingenious system. And I always tell people, when we uncover one of their patterns, it's like a thrilling, I get a thrill, like, oh wow, that's what, your brain equated that equals that equals that and equals that. And I write it out like an equation for them. This is what this emotion equals, because it's so fascinating to me. And it's not something that you should be ashamed of. I had a lady that had a lot of arm pain. And I use this as a real benchmark story to explain what the secondary gain does, and how we've got these stories going on in many different areas of our life. It's not like, we don't have any, but no one could get to the bottom of the arm pain. And, of course, if someone comes in with a lot of pain, you check to, ask them what the structural damage is, what, have you gone to see and done x-rays? Has it been caused by an injury? So she'd been on that path for about a year and couldn't find really a cause. Wasn't arthritis. It could have been fibromyalgia. They weren't sure. And turns out that through the session we had, because I told her up front, kinesiologists do not fix. Like, we don't prescribe, we don't fix. So I'm not going to, tell you that I can fix your arm pain or you can fix your arm pain. We're going to look at it and see what meaning it has in your life. So if you want to go on that journey, that's what we'll do. And it turned out that every time she had this debilitating pain, her sister, who didn't live far from her, would reach out to her and give her all this love and affection and connection that she never had when they were growing up. They didn't have a good relationship, and she didn't treat her well. She didn't treat her well. And this woman always had wanted to have this sisterly relationship. And she finally got it when she had this arm pain. Who knows what came first, the chicken or the egg? We're amazing at getting our needs met, right? But sometimes we do it in such a way that's actually very harmful to us, right? Because we're so powerful, we don't own that power, we don't realize it. So she'd just been, we made the connection that it was the arm pain was being held in place because she was getting what she needed from her sister, and it was a beautiful thing. So it wasn't a horrible thing or something to be ashamed of. It was like, wow, you found a way to get that sisterly connection. Now we have to. Could we do it in a way that doesn't have your body in pain? Like, let's just entertain that. And we left it there. We did a few things and it did go away because there was no longer a need for it.
Right.
But having said that, think about all the times that we've created this exact pattern in our life, like by saying things like, I can remember being in a job that was so horrible. I used to literally dream every day that the bus would crash and delay me from going there. And I couldn't give it up because there was a lot of stuff going on, and I wanted to be right, and I wanted to be the one who outlasted all these, so-and-sos. And my back just completely packed up. Completely out of nowhere. Was not connected to any injury. I was forced to stay away, and I couldn't sit down. Right, it was that bad, and I saw a chiropractor at that time, first time, and guess what that chiropractor had on their wall? Touch for Health. But I didn't recognize it at the time. They had all the charts. I'd be lying on my stomach, and this guy would be testing what I now know was my sartorius and my gracilis, asking me whether I was happy at work. And I'd be thinking, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I'm not here for that. But they were doing all that. See, I didn't even know what kinesiology was then. And now I realize, oh my God, so yeah, I mean, you can be right, but that's what you'll create. I created a way to not go to work, didn't I? But it was a severe injury to me, and it nearly stopped me from living my life. So you can do this, you even just what you say to yourself daily, or not even daily, but just thinking, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. Well, you can create situations that keep you away, but they may affect your health because so
you got to have, it's like having the reason to be able to pull out,
but how amazing.
Incredible.
Like I say to people, it's just amazing. Like how we have all these little games and stories that we've done, and we have met some of our needs, but it just hasn't been done in a skillful and functional way, because to get that need met, we may have put ourselves in peril in some other way, and that's what the secondary gain and the sabotage actually does. So it's just trying to get people to be okay with having their needs met without having to destroy themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. And then looking at, with that example of that lady with the arm pain, it's looking at, well, obviously she didn't have access to, as part of what we look at is freeing up resources, mental, emotional, and biochemical resources and new patterns and beliefs that support her ability to create a healthy relationship with her sister without having to cause detriment to herself. And quite possibly she may not have had access to or pattern or examples of in her childhood of how you do that. Possibly, it just wasn't a learnt experience of how to easily create connection with people or whatever. So we then just go ahead, very innocently in some ways, we go ahead and do whatever we possibly know how to do to try and get that need met. So for we see it all the time with ourselves and other people, where we think, oh gee, I'm not going about this in the right way. She may not have had the strength to just approach her sister and talk to her openly, or whatever, like whatever it is that she needed.
Unmet needs will destroy you. I mean, I'm pretty sure about that. If she didn't do what she did at that point, it probably would have been worse for her. So I think she needed to do that, actually, and she instinctively knew she needed to have that healing, that she had that relationship with her sister. She needed to get it in some way, and she got it. But then it was about once that the way you're actually getting that need met starts to destroy you, then you need to be able to recognize that and move on from that. And that's the thing. Otherwise, that will be the only way that you do that need, and you'll do that repeating pattern with someone else. All the time.
That's right.
So it really wasn't about a sister, but I mean, she met that need. Like how smart she is. She realized it was urgent to her at that point to meet that need. She got it done. But then it was like that need, actually, the way that's being met has very little to do with her sister now, because if it becomes a pattern, then that's how she'll always get her need for connection, for sisterly connection met. And she won't realize that she's doing it that way. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean, like,
that's right. We're
We
just
have to
doing
get our
life.
needs met any way we can. But then when that way becomes more painful than not having the need met or having the need met, that's the point where you're at a crossroads, or you just can't do it anymore because it's taking so much for you to get that need met that it's actually destroying you. Like the actual journey is worse than the destination.
That's really good. That's probably a really
Yeah.
nice place to. I'm just noticing the time, and I
Yes.
know that
Yes.
you've got a busy day ahead,
I
and
do.
I'm
I
sad
do.
to have to cut us
I
off
know.
now. So,
Yeah,
but
this feels
that's
like a coffee chat, and
I
it
know,
is. Yeah,
and
it
it's
is.
great. So, thank you so much for coming on. I think that's a perfect place to end. It's like when
Yes.
the journey becomes more detrimental than the price of the price of the
Yeah.
journey and is more than the destination itself.
Yeah.
That's when
Yeah.
we really start to need to look at, okay, so how am I getting somewhere, and are better ways to get myself there.
Yes. In
Um,
in the supermarket of the soul, that's a price check. There,
oh, that's
price
right. That's
check.
that's a bit expensive. Put it back
Yeah,
on the
exactly.
shelf and look for
What
something better.
cost? Yeah.
What's the
Yeah.
cost? And that's a really great way of looking at what we do, is looking at the cost of our behaviors, beliefs,
Mm.
patterns, looking at them,
Yeah,
looking
it's
at
a
the
cost.
can, looking at the ingredients,
There's no value
which
judgment. There's no right or
no,
wrong or good emotion, bad
that's right.
emotion. It's the
That's right.
cost to
That's
you.
right. And
Yeah.
are you willing to pay that cost? And some people are. It's really
Yes,
interesting.
and that's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally, totally. It
Yeah.
has been an absolute pleasure. I
Me
look forward to
too.
chatting with you and jumping down some more rabbit holes in the
Yes,
future.
let's do
If you've
that.
got, so just let everybody know, how can they, if they're interested, do you do
Yeah.
Skype, Zoom sessions, online sessions, Anne,
I do Skype. Yes, I have worked with clients remotely
online?
on Skype, particularly with
Okay,
Kinesiology too. But yeah, I have definitely done that. My business is called Courage on Kinesiology, and I operate out of the cottage, home of hair, health and beauty at Currajong. You can go to courageonkinesiology.com.au, which is my website. Or you can go onto Facebook and find that page as well. Or you can even go to the cottage and you can book directly from the cottage. At the moment, I'm doing alternate Saturdays, but I add weeknights on and off as we go along. Or contact me directly.
as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's great. That's excellent. So if you're
Thank you.
looking to connect with an amazing kinesiologist who's in the Blue Mountains, it's Currajong with a K, because I know there are
It
some
is.
places that spell it with a C. My auntie lives on Currajong Street in Parks, and it's with a C. Yeah,
See.
so
Wow.
Currajong with a K, everyone.
Yeah.
Check
Beautiful
out
place,
Anne.
Currajong.
It's
Beautiful place.
absolutely
Yeah.
stunning. It's probably, for those who know Western Sydney, it's probably only about, I don't know, is it about maybe 40 or 50 minutes from Penrith,
Yeah,
up to
yeah.
Currajong?
It's
Yeah,
it's still the Hawkesbury.
yeah,
I think it's still the Hawkesbury. So
yeah.
from Windsor it's about 15 minutes further on. Let's say 20 minutes drive further out from Windsor. It's a lovely place, and
It's
yeah.
absolutely beautiful. So if
Yeah.
you're interested in going, nice places to have a coffee up there,
Oh yeah,
go
yeah.
have a balance and
Mm.
connect with Anne. But thank you so much for sharing with us today, Anne.
Thank
And
you for giving me the opportunity, really.
my pleasure. I look forward to chatting with you again soon. And
Yeah, me too.
yeah, we will be back with another amazing interview next week and
Mm.
talk with Anne again.
Yeah,
If you've got
and
any
everybody,
questions for
please
Anne,
watch Andrew's series because there are so many beautiful interviews on there. It's very entertaining. You'll learn something. I highly recommend just tuning in and watching all the older interviews and just get up to speed. It's a great series that you're doing
thank
a great
you.
thing. Yeah,
Oh, thank you,
yeah,
Anne. And I
really
put
love
a
it.
shout out to, if you're a kinesiologist, even if you're applied kinesiologist, even if you're
Yeah.
not a kinesiologist, if you're keen to have a chat, really, I'd love to create a community of kinesiologists and other health practitioners that just to
Mm,
raise the roof, raise the awareness, raise the
mm.
understandability of kinesiology, and create a really fun community of people where we can all learn from one another and help to teach the community and demystify what it is that we do, so that people feel
Exactly.
much more comfortable, have a lot more
Mm,
understanding and awareness about what we're here to
mm.
do and how it might help them. So
But also,
thank you.
just jump in and do it
Mm.
as well. Because I think you could ring us and ask us 50 questions and we could answer them in a way that might be adequate to your checklist. But how you feel and what's going to happen when you come and experience it, we can't predict that for you. The
No,
best way to
that's
do
right.
that is actually to jump in and do it. Because if you're being led to do something, don't question it. Just do it.
Give it a
And if it
go,
ends
have an
up being
experience.
not for you, at least you can say, I've experienced that. You know, I've experienced that.
That's
Yeah,
right. That's right. Wonderful. Well, have a wonderful day, Anne, and
you
we
too.
shall chat very, very soon.
We will play soon, I'm sure.
I'm sure you will. Take good care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.